What's the most ridiculous thing someone you know does for a living? My uncle used to work in a psych ward as a security guy. He did the overpasses. His supervisor told him, sleep your shift away. If something happens that wakes you up, get me as soon as possible. He basically got paid to sleep for 8 hours. I had a job at a soda company. My job was to monitor the defects. Cans come off the line, dented, half full, etc. and are automatically kicked out into separate bins. My job was to open the cans, pour soda on the floor, and throw away the can. I was a soda pourer. I work in museums and have a background in curatorial. Most people have no idea how incredibly important lighting is to a gallery. It goes far beyond simple "it's so dark I can't see the artifact/painting" or "damn, son, it's bright in here." Light significantly affects the condition and value of the piece on display. Lighting experts can basically charge anything they want to a museum or gallery because they are directly responsible for much of the condition of the literally priceless objects in the gallery. I know a guy who did this with rugs from the Middle East. He was in the army, and while overseas, can't remember the country, sorry, he would buy these things for maybe a couple hundred on the high end, bring them here, and they'd sell for thousands of dollars. He has a couple rugs that sold for $10,000 plus. So, he takes that money and buys a few $1,000s worth of rugs instead of like $300, buys a shit ton, sends them home, wife sells them while he's spraying bullets. Comes home. He's now retired at like 40 years old. Never thought of doing this with furniture though. Any way you can get me a picture of the furniture he's painted and sold, post paint job, I'd be interested to see if people here think it's worth money. Somewhere out there is a person who is paid to eat good food and drink good wine and write about how good the food is. And guess what? They put it on their blogs with shitload of pictures and vague comments like the steak was rich and flavorful, or the ramen was rich and flavorful, or I love how the pasta was rich and flavorful. I'm friends with someone that is a personal assistant for the wife of a CEO of a company. The company employs her, and she is the assistant to the wife, who doesn't work for the company. The lady doesn't work, but apparently needs someone to do minor normal tasks for her and drive her around. She's on call for her 24/7, but has never received a call after 9 PM in the last 4 years. She does maybe 3 hours of actual work each day and then hangs out with a lady for the rest of the time. They let her use their Miami Beach condo for 2 weeks a year for free too. I'm glad she knows how lucky this job is, otherwise it'd annoy me a whole lot more. An acquaintance of mine does sex chat for a living. No cam, no voice, just chat. Like, just texting via an IM interface on an adult site. She's dirty rich, but has no time for any relationships, friends, or partners. She spends most of her money on clothes and expensive tech, phones, cars, etc. Combine all that with the fact that we live in the Balkans, where most people just want to work and still barely survive from month to month, and voila, depression. My best friend has been unemployed for about the last year, but he makes more money than I do selling Magic the Gathering cards like playing the stock market. He buys low and then sells the cards once they jump up in value, and he has started like a self-help clan in Clash of Clans. He streams 5 nights a week and will do one-on-one help with building bases and critiquing attacks that people in the clan send him. His system is that for a $10 donation on Twitch he'll do 2 10-minute critiques, either of your base or your attack, and make suggestions. He does this for hours a day/night and makes really good money. I know someone who writes the funny comments between TV shows telling people what's coming up next for a particular channel. For example, and up next, it's going to be a whale of a night in extreme fishing live, or whatever. He makes more money than I currently do. Guess I should have done a creative writing degree like him. It's an extremely difficult and creative job, and one I absolutely couldn't do. I know a guy who works for some branch of the Louisiana government. His job is to literally drive around the marshes in a boat and destroy an invasive species of cactus. He developed his own method of doing this, which entails him seeing the cactus, using a compound bow to tag the cactus, then he torches it with a blowtorch. He's tried a few times to convince his boss to buy him a flamethrower so he doesn't have to leave the boat, but so far he's been unsuccessful in that. I worked with a guy who hosts a porn website. All the videos are just attractive women getting slime poured on top of them. They are even wearing clothes while this happens. He would take vacations and film different aspiring models doing this. He pulls in around $5 a month for doing this. Worked a factory job for a while. There was a guy on the second shift who was a bit on the simple side and liked straightforward repetitive tasks. He was a trifle tapper. He'd stand on the production line at the point where the sealed trifles came out of the cold room and into the packing area and, with his gloved hand, tap the top of each trifle firmly to check the seal was good. We'd had some problems with the heat sealing machine. Tubs would look sealed but not be airtight and the product would spoil in transit. It was cheaper to pay the guy to tap away at minimum wage than it was to replace the machine, I guess. And he was happy enough. An old friend's dad made a huge amount of money reselling paper cups. I was invited to his beachfront property for a ride on his boat when he told me this. He apparently got brought in as an independent contractor, a terrible commission-only gig, for a paper products company. He then turned around and landed a deal to supply every McDonald's franchise in 3 states with their cups. A few years later he did the same thing for Wendy's. By the time his contract expired he had made enough money to retire. A fraternity buddy of mine works on super yachts across the world. Started as a deckhand, is moving up the ladder. He gets paid well, traveled to over 150 countries now, and is getting paid on Instagram due to the locations he has been to. I'm jealous of his life, but maybe that is because I'm currently looking outside to snow on April 7th from an office cubicle. It's certainly not super ridiculous, but I found out a guy I play hockey with makes his living from buying things from the Lines Bean, the North Face, Patagonia, etc. outlets and marking them up on eBay and selling them to people in countries where these brands aren't available in retail. I imagine this is fairly common. It just seems like a ridiculous job. A day of work just consists of going shopping, listing things on eBay, dealing with PayPal transactions and other customer service matters, and dropping things off at the UPS store. I know someone who works for a company that looks after some UK properties of super wealthy Arabs. They charge a fortune to make sure the property is in order, so that if someone in the family wants to use it, it's ready. This is generally for 2 weeks in the year, and sometimes whole years can go past with nobody using them. Her job is to manage the stuff that is subcontracted out to local gardeners, cleaners, etc. My friend works for the city operating a drawbridge. He sits in a control room, which has a bed, a couch and a TV, for 12 hours at a time and waits for boats to come. When they do, about 3 times a week, he gets up from what he is doing and hits a big red button which lifts the bridge. When it passes, he hits the button again and it goes down. I asked him once what his busiest day was. 4 boats. 4 fucking boats. Builds furry outfits. As far as I know, she's never really made any for herself, but she does take designs for other folks and constructs full body costumes. While I don't fully understand why someone would want to wear a hot, restricting costume in order to appear as a fox griffin or whatever, I can appreciate and respect the effort, creativity, and time that had to go into the construction of such an elaborate outfit. And they're not cheap, so it's good money. Had a blind date once with a woman who sleeps for a living. She was a nighttime caretaker at a business facility of some sort. Can't remember what kind of facility, and their goal is just to have some employee in the building 24/7. At night when the second shift employees leave, she shows up, goes to a bedroom area they've set up for her, and sleeps there. Her job is simply to be there for the fire department in case there's an emergency. Otherwise she does nothing but sleep for money. I actually did this myself for a short period during summer break. Clean cheese. We would receive shipment of moldy cheese that we'd clean by cutting/spraying off the mold with high pressure water guns. First we'd have to remove the plastic layer with the water guns and then remove any visible mold. With cheese moldies, usually only on the surface, and is still perfectly edible once the mold is removed. The country I did this one, the Netherlands, however does not allow for the resale of used cheese, so it was shipped off to Denmark, where they would melt the cheese down to make cheese spread. They also did some buying and selling of non-moldy cheeses to generate some extra revenue, and one of the perks of the job was getting 2 pounds of cheese for free a week. I've eaten some of the best cheese in my life from that place. I have a friend who is a dog carer. His one job is to care for one dog. Makes about £30,000 a year. The guy he works for is obviously rich and my friend lives in his mansion. He gets up at 6 AM and walks the dog, plays with it all day and basically just watches it. Occasionally goes on holiday with the family and has to deal with the dog going to different countries, which is a bit of a hassle, but I wouldn't be complaining. Apparently the rich guy has a friend who wants a dog carer and my friend gave me a reference, so fingers crossed. A friend is a male model. Has been for nearly a decade. He works, I think, a total of 40 hours a year, and by work I mean hangs out at a set eating free food and booze, cavorting with other models, and periodically posing for photos. In order to do this, he gets flown to exotic and exciting destinations, put up in a hotel with other models, brought to exclusive clubs and parties for free, and given tons of free swag. He has all but lost touch with reality and I can't even relate to him anymore. When in Japan, my wife almost got a job being the designated foreigner at weddings. Apparently Japanese like a foreigner in the photos as it makes them more interesting. A Canadian guy we met spent 6 months working as a designated foreigner in a bar. He had to give up for health reasons. For a few seasons I used to work for the Department of Agriculture as a boll weevil trapper. I was given a 4x4 pickup, some tools, traps, a barcode scanner, a map, and a garden hoe that turned loose to check traps deployed around cotton fields. I was paid about $10 to drive around by myself in peace and quiet to look for a bug. Some of the country scenes I saw have only been seen by a handful of people. Even though it wasn't my profession, it was one of my favorite jobs, next to working at haunted attractions and Ren fairs. I worked at a bank doing front-facing sales. I would visit prospective and current clients' businesses often. One prospective client I found via cold calling ended being a sex doll manufacturer. I got to see the process in manufacturing the dolls. They have a boob specialist who will get these exterior, maybe silicone made, boobs, and based on the model of the doll, or if it is a custom request by a client, would paint the nipples, add a piercing if any, and paint any birthmarks, scars, etc. The boobs were all hanging on a wall rack in a separate room, all of different sizes and colors. Same thing for faces. They had a makeup artist who would get these faces and literally put makeup on them. I'm sure it was paint of some sort, but the whole idea was to add makeup and make them look pretty. I remember I only saw one female worker there who worked at the front desk. The rest of the people were males that specialized in all this sex doll stuff. I don't know if it's ridiculous, but my best friend is a professional house sitter / plant sitter / pet sitter / babysitter, etc. What I find crazy about it isn't what she does, it's how much money she makes doing it. She makes sometimes $20 an hour just hanging out at someone's fabulous mansion while they are on vacation. She once had a gig at a mansion on Orcas Island and the owners even paid for myself and a mutual friend to go visit her, which required an $85 water taxi both ways. We spent the time drinking champagne, hanging out in their hot tub grotto, and four-wheeling with their ATVs. And this is just one example. She gets paid $16 minimum to walk your dog. She makes $18 an hour to babysit your kid. I mean, people pay her out the nose to just hang out, really. And not only does she make some of the best money out of all of our friends who work 9 to 5 jobs, she makes her own hours for the most part, and has enough time and money to go back to school for ultrasound. So yay, that's pretty ridiculous to me. I once had a job testing Xerox machines. I had to take a test sheet, place it in the copy machine and run 1000 copies. When the machine ran out of paper, I had to refill it. Once the 1000 copies ran, I was tasked with moving the test sheet on the machine and running 1000 more copies. The engineers would occasionally come by to extract data off the machine based on the copies made. The absolute amazing thing about that job was that my colleagues sucked at it. In fact, I was so good at it I got promoted. Seriously, they would not move the paper, forget to hit copy, load the paper wrong. None seemed to be mentally impaired, but they all somehow managed to F it up all day long. One guy who had trouble with the job was so angry when I got promoted he declared it reverse discrimination because I was a woman. Hilarious and deeply disturbing all at the same time. I also never read more books in a week than I did on that job. They also loved me because I could work 5 machines at once, where the other people could only handle 1. I'm not making this up either. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.